So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're still in the middle of the story of the Bedouin and the Caliph. Actually, we're towards the end. It's the 11th session now for this story. So, just as we usually do, let's start from verses from the previous section. So, what happened last time was this Bedouin finally arrived in Baghdad, which is the Dar al-Khalafa, the court of the Caliph. And the officers of the Caliph, the chamberlains, and we discussed that these officers represent awliya, represent saints. Awliya and anbiya, indeed. Officers and chamberlains, so prophets and saints. So they came to welcome this Caliph, welcome this Bedouin. And they said, you've come from a long journey, you must be tired. And this Bedouin also dealt with them with a lot of adab, with a lot of courtesy. And he said, I'm respected if you respect me. But if you turn from me, I have nothing to be proud of. And then he said, one sight of yours is worth sights. And may all gold coins be sacrificed for seeing you once. Because you're like the alchemy, you're like the elixir that transforms copper into gold. And then he says, I came for bread. My initial aim was to get something from the Caliph. But now that I've come here, my intentions have changed. Now I'm looking for didar. Now I'm looking for being close to the Caliph. And he gave several examples, just like Moses, who wanted to get some fire to keep warm. And then he saw another fire, and his aim changed. And he gave several examples of that. And then he says, Non borun ran dadami ra az behesht, non mara andar beheshti dar saresht. Bread drove Adam away from paradise, but bread, because I brought this water to get something from the king, to get bread from the king. But for me, bread is leading me to paradise, is causing me to come closer to paradise. Rastam as ab u zanan hamchon malak, just like angels, I'm free from ab and nan, I'm free from water and bread. And I have come to this court, I have come to this door of the beloved, door of the king. I have come just like the falak, just like the heavenly spheres, who turn without any qaraz, without any motive, ulterior motive. They turn because they're in love. They turn because they're lovers of Allah. Everything in this world acts for a motive, acts for an ulterior motive. Everything in this world, except for lovers, except for the souls of lovers and bodies of lovers. They're the ones who have no qaraz. Now, in this section, which we're going to read today, Mawlana is going to say, but be careful. When I say nothing in this world turns, nothing in this world moves without qaraz except lovers, what I mean is the true lovers, the lovers of the kull, those who love the kull, not the juz, the whole, not the part. So he makes that distinction between the lovers of the whole and lovers of the part. And this section which we're going to read today, Mawlana says, در بیان آنکه عاشق دنیا بر مثال عاشق دیواری است که بر او تاب آفتاب زند. Those who are in love with dunya, with this world, this lower world, they're just like someone who loves a wall because of the sunshine, because the sunbeams have shone on this wall. And he loves this wall because of the light of this wall, because it's brilliant and it's radiant. But he doesn't know that the radiance comes from the sun. It doesn't come from the wall itself. And that's why he is in delusion. So once the sun goes, the orb of the sun, right? That's where the light comes from. So he sets his whole heart on the wall. He devotes himself to the wall. He thinks this wall is radiant in and of itself. He doesn't know the radiance comes from the sun. In this case, the sun represents the light of Allah, the nur of Allah. When the sunbeams rejoin the sun, he is left in despair. He is left in despair. And mahrum manad abadan, forever. And Mawlana quotes the Qur'an. A bar is placed between them and that which they desire. Because they had that mistake of attaching themselves, attaching to something that's also created, something that's not the absolute. Yeah, Brother Abdurrahman, you just came in time. Would you mind reading if you're not too tired?
Oh, wow, I really did time it well. Does it start from the lovers of the whole?
Indeed, yes.
The lovers of the whole are not those who love the part. He that longed for the part failed to attain unto the whole. When a part falls in love with a part, the object of its love soon goes to its own whole. He became the laughing stock of another's slave. He became drowning and clung to someone weak. He possesses no authority that he should care for him. Shall he do his own master's business or his?
Yeah. So this is a short section. So Mawlana makes that distinction between the lovers of the kull, lovers of the whole, and the lovers of the part. And then he says, "Mand as kull anke shod mushtaq juzv." Those who are in love with the part, they fail to attain the whole. So if you cling to the whole, if you attach yourself to the whole, you also have all the parts. As Mawlana Shams Tabrizi, he says, if you devote yourself to a branch of a tree, all you have is that branch. But if you're attached to the root of the tree, then the whole tree is yours. All the branches are yours. So that's the idea. If you attach yourself to the whole, that is to the root of the root of the root, then everything is yours. All the parts are yours. All the branches are yours. But otherwise, if you're a part and then you're also in love with a part, then that part goes to its whole, goes back to its source, and then you're left in despair. Just like Mawlana gives an example of someone who's drowning. If you're drowning, would you cling to someone who's also drowning? Or someone who knows how to swim, someone who knows how to swim and knows how to save you? You cling to someone who knows how to swim and knows how to save you, not someone who's also drowning. You need someone who has authority, who can care for you, not someone who's a slave and who is obeying his master's business. Why would you attach yourself to that person? Okay, so yeah, Brother Abdurrahman, if you don't mind, can you continue?
Bismillah. The Arabic proverb, if you commit fornication, commit it with a free woman, and if you steal, steal a pearl. Hence, fornicate with a free woman became proverbial. Steal a pearl was transferred to this. The slave went away to his master. He was left in misery. The scent of the rose went to the rose. He was left with the thorn. He was left far from the object of his desire, his labor lost, his toil useless, his foot wounded. Like the hunter who catches a shadow, how should the shadow become his property? The man has grasped tightly the shadow of a bird. The bird on the branch of the tree is fallen into amazement. I wonder who this crack-brained fellow is laughing at. Here's folly for you, here's a rotten cause. And if you say that the part is connected with the whole, eat thorns. The thorn is connected with the rose. Except from one point of view, it is not connected with the whole. Otherwise, indeed, the mission of the prophets would be vain. Inasmuch as the prophets are in order to connect, how then should they connect them when they are one body? This discourse has no end. O lad, the day is late. Conclude the tale.
Okay, so Mawlana's explaining an Arabic proverb. إذا زنيت فزن بالحرة وإذا سرقت فاسرق الدرة. If you want to commit fornication, do it with a free woman. If you want to steal, go and steal a pearl. So the original meaning of the proverb is don't be petty. If you want to be a thief, okay, fair enough, but go and do something great, right? Go rob a bank. Don't just steal petty things. But the way Mawlana uses it is go and steal a pearl. Means if you have to steal, go and steal a pearl. Again, aim high, have high aspirations. So if you want to love, go and love someone who's worthy of that. If you want to cling to someone, go and find a pearl. If you want to run after someone, go find someone who can help you, who's higher. So have that high aspirations. And this otherwise, if you attach yourself to a slave, that slave goes to his master and you remain in despair. The fragrance of the rose goes back to the rose, and then you're left with the thorn of separation. And once you do that, you're far from your desire, with your foot wounded and your labor lost. And he gives the example of a hunter who's hunting a shadow of a bird, not a real bird. And that real bird on the branch of a tree is laughing at this hunter. What is this guy doing? What is this idiot doing? سایه مرغی گرفته مرد سخت. This man is grasping the shadow of a bird. And that real bird on the branch is laughing, is amazed. What is this idiot doing? مدمغ بر که میخندد عجب. This crack-brained, I like this phrase. This idiot, what is he doing? Ain't batil, and this is the batil. When the Quran says the sa'i batil, the people whose sa'i was lost in this world, whose efforts were wasted because they were chasing shadows, they were hunting shadows. So the bird is laughing at them, the real bird. Now, you might say, okay, the part is connected to the whole. So I'm attaching myself to the part, but the part is connected to the whole. And Mawlana is saying, if that's the case, then why don't you eat thorns? Thorns are connected to a rose, but there's a difference. There's a difference between the fragrance of a rose and thorns. Thorns don't have that fragrance. So yes, everything is connected to Allah. Everything is connected to that whole. But there is a difference. There is a hierarchy. جز ز یک رو نیست پیوسته به کل. The part is connected to the whole in one aspect, not in all aspects. And that's why the prophets came. That's why Anbiya and Awliya, they came to lead people from darknesses to light. So there is a possibility of getting lost. If there is no possibility of getting lost, there is no need for a map. There is no need for a guide. The fact that there are guides, the fact that there are maps, there are Anbiya, there are prophets, there are Awliya, there are sacred books, it's because there is that possibility of people getting lost in this world, not knowing what's the way. چون رسولان از پی پیوستنند پس چه پیوندندشان چون یک تنند. And that's why the prophets have come to connect people to the root, to connect people to the whole. If it was all one and there was one body, everything is connected, there was no need for the prophets to come. And then again, Mawlana says, in sukhan payan nadarad, as he usually does. This discourse has no end. Let's go back to the story of the Arab and the Caliph. Yes, Kenzie.
Okay, it's maybe completely off subject, but from the beginning, I've been thinking about this story of Nasruddin Hoja. Can I share it? Is it okay?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. So it's an imam from a mosque, or a scholar. So anyway, somebody with like a big turban who takes himself very seriously. So he's walking in the village and he falls into a pond, and he's about to drown. So all the people come and they're like, "Come on, take my hand, come on." No, they're like, "Give me your hand," and they give him a rope and, "Come on, give me your hand, give me your," and he refuses. And meanwhile, he's like, going down in that pond, and just his turban is showing. So they call Nasruddin Hoja. He comes around and he hears all the ruckus and everything. And he said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, it's the Imam. We've told him, give your hand so we can save you." And so Nasruddin Hoja said, No. This guy is not used to giving. He's used to taking. So you have to tell him, take my hand. So Nasruddin Hoja says, take my hand. And the Imam takes the hand and then he's pulled out. So of course there's a joke about it, that the Imam is after money, whatever. But there's also, for me, a bit more profound, this idea that you do need what you were mentioning. You do need certain guidance, and you need to recognize it. You need to be able to take that hand, the prophets and what they're telling you, and and to choose wisely in order for you to get out of that pond. I don't know, this story came to my mind when you were explaining, so I'm sharing it.
Beautiful story, thank you. Yes, Badabra.
So the proverb, if you commit fornication, commit it with a free woman, and if you steal a pearl, is that like the English expression, you might as well get hung for a sheep as for a lamb? Meaning, if you're going to get caught doing a crime, you might as well make it a big one.
Make it a big one, yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the idea. Yeah. Is that proverb used in Arabic? I don't know. Kenza, have you heard that in Arabic?
I've never heard it.
Never heard it.
Never, no.
Yeah.
Maybe at the time of Rumi, I don't know, but I've never heard it.
Yes, so yeah, Brother Abraham, if you don't mind.
Bismillah. How the Arab delivered the gift, that is, the jug, to the Caliph's servants. He presented the jug of water, he sowed the seed of homage in that court. Bear this gift, said he to the Sultan, redeem the king's suitor from indigence. It is sweet water and a new green jug, some of the rainwater that collected in the ditch. The officials smiled at that, but they accepted it as life, because the graciousness of the good and wise king had made a mark on all the courtiers. The disposition of kings settles in their subjects. The green sky makes the earth verdant. Regard the king as a reservoir with pipes in every direction, and water running from all like hoppers. When the water in all is from a pure reservoir, every single one gives sweet water, pleasant to taste. But if the water in the reservoir is brackish and dirty, every pipe brings the same to view. Because every pipe is connected with the reservoir, dive into the meaning of these words. How the imperial grace of the homeless spirit has produced effects on the whole body. How the grace of reason, which is of goodly nature, of goodly lineage, brings the entire body into discipline. How love, saucy, uncontrolled, and restless, throws the whole body into madness. The purity of the water of the sea is like Kawthar. Its pebbles are pearls and gems. For whatever science the master is renowned, the souls of his pupils become endued with the same. With the master theologian, the quick and industrious pupil reads theology. With the master jurist, the student of jurisprudence reads jurisprudence, when he expounds it, not theology. Then the master who is a grammarian, the soul of his pupil becomes imbued by him with grammar. Again, the master who is absorbed in the way, because of him the soul of his pupil is absorbed in the king. Of all these various kinds of knowledge, on the day of death, the equipment and provision for the road is the knowledge of poverty.
So the Arab presents the jug of water to the Naqiban, to the officers of the king. And he says, take this goft in hedye bedan sultan parid. Take this present, take this gift to the sultan. Sa'il shahra ze hajat ba khalid. And he says, this is sweet water. This is the best water in the world. Remember, he's coming from the desert. He hasn't seen anything better. But the officials, they laugh, they smile. But despite knowing that the Khalifa doesn't need this water, despite that, they accept it. They accept it as life. And then Mawlana is saying, because the nature of that king, the beauty of that king had affected these officials as well. The graciousness of the king had made a mark on all these officials. And that's a general rule. The disposition of kings settles in their subjects. If the king is good, or if those who are in authority are good, they make society in which goodness is encouraged. And just like this, the sky makes the earth green, makes pastures and meadows all green because of the rain that comes from the sky. And then he gives an imagery. So the king is like a reservoir, and their pipes ab az lule ravan dar kuleha, and water is running through these pipes. Now, if the water in the reservoir, in the original reservoir, is clean, is pure, the water in the pipes will also be clean. Whereas if the water is bitter and dirty, the water in the pipes is also going to be dirty. Because all the pipes are connected to the reservoir. So the king you attach yourself to affects your character. Those who are connected to the king, to the Malik Yawmuddin, the king of the day of resurrection, they will have the character of Allah. Those who attach themselves to shaitan or others, they will have the character of that. That's the brackish water and the clean water, the sweet and pure water. لطف شاهنشاه جان بی وطن چون اثر کرده است اندر کل تن. And then he gives the inside you, who is the Shahanshah of you, is the heart. So if the heart is pure, the spirit is pure, then your entire being will be pure. And if the heart is dirty and brackish, then your entire being will be brackish and dirty. لطف, and see how it affects. لطف عقل خوشنهاد خوشنسب چون همه تن را در آرد در ادب. When someone is rational, the reason is grace, the grace of reason, then the whole body will be disciplined because reason is in charge. Entire body, the hands, the feet, everything will be disciplined if reason is in charge. If love is there, love which is restless and uncontrolled, again, the whole body is affected. Someone who is in love, you can tell from the face, from the hands, from the feet, everything. چون در آرد عشق شنگ بیقرار بیسکون. The love that's shang and بیقرار, restless, بیسکون, right, uncontrolled. چون در آرد کل تن را در جنون. And the entire body will be in junun. The entire body will go mad. That's how the heart, the king, affects the subjects. So the king of your being, that's the heart. However your heart is, if your heart is in love, everything will be affected. If your heart is disciplined, everything will be disciplined. If your heart is brackish, everything will be brackish. هر هنر کستا بدان معروف شد جان شاگردان بدان موصوف شد. And this is just like the teacher and the student. The teacher affects the students. And that's why if you go to the Ustad Usuli, someone who teaches Usul al-Din, that's Kalam or theology, the student who studies with that professor, that Ustad or that teacher, that student will become a theologian. He won't become maybe an expert in fiqh, he would become an expert in theology. And likewise, the person who studies with a master jurist, Ustad al-Faqih, that student will become a faqih, will become a jurist. He won't become an expert in theology, but he would become an expert in fiqh, jurisprudence. پیش استادی که اون نحوی بود جان شاگردش از اون نحوی شود. And the student who studies with a grammarian, someone who's an expert in Arabic grammar or in grammar, that student will also become a grammarian. And then all of these people, they will look at everything from that lens of their own subject. Like faqih will look at everything from the point of view of fiqh. A grammarian will look at everything from the point of view of grammar. But then Mawlana says, but there is a teacher who is who is annihilated in the way, who is absorbed. The student of such teachers, they will also become absorbed. They will also become annihilated in the king. And from all these different types of knowledge, whether it's fiqh, whether it's theology, none of these sciences will help you after death. The only knowledge that will help you on that day is the knowledge of fakhr, is the knowledge of letting go of your pride, letting go of your separate existence. That's the knowledge, danish fakhr, the knowledge of fakhr, knowledge of poverty. That's the only knowledge that will help you. Yes, Kanza.
Actually, I have a question. I don't understand in line 28, 25. 28, 25, that's what I wrote. What is Jan Bivatan? Like, he translated it as homeless spirit.
So I believe he's referring to the heart, to the human heart. So that's the Shahanshah, the King of Kings. Jan Bivatan, the soul that has no, because the heart you cannot pinpoint where the seat of consciousness is. So where's the heart? The physical, not the physical heart, obviously. The consciousness, where is that? So you can't point to its place, its watan. You don't know where it is, and yet it's invisible, but it affects the whole body.
Okay.
Yes, Badr.
The last line of all these various kinds of knowledge on the day of death, your provision for the road is the knowledge of poverty. When you think about it, that's a statement of objective truth, because how many things we load onto our backs that we really don't need. And what we need, if we're to attempt, to die before we die, so to speak, we need to be giving back that, to taking those attachments off, taking those that clothing again off. That knowledge of poverty and what that really means is ultimately dying before you die. So it seems to me that Mawlana is telling us the very plain truth here. I also liked the water imagery. You connect you connect to the pipe that has a pure channel to the source, the reservoir, and you allow that to clean you. You allow that to wash you clean. That was a very nice image.
Indeed. Yeah, and the last line reminds me of Surah Al-Jum'ah as well. In there he says, الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ, the people who were entrusted with the Torah, but they didn't act according to the Torah. They're just like donkeys who are carrying books. And that knowledge will not help them, just like the knowledge that the books that a donkey carries, but is not acting according, has not realized any of that. That knowledge is not going to help you. And in that same surah, it says true knowledge is when you learn how to die. And if you're truthful, you should wish death. So that's the knowledge of dying before dying. Yes, Ali.
Yeah, I just thought of the first encounter between Mawlana and Shams, right, which is noted in Fihi Ma Fi, where Mawlana is, of course, a very accomplished theologian and jurist of his time, and he's visited by Shams, and then as Shams points at the books, he asks Mawlana, what do these books contain? And Mawlana, in rather arrogant expression, says, "Oh, it's none of your business. You won't understand." So Shams is infuriated, and he casts these books in the water, right, or manuscripts. And then Mawlana is infuriated, and when Shams retrieves the manuscripts, it's completely dry, like it hasn't been in the pond at all. So Mawlana asks, "How did you do that?" And Shams says, "It's none of your business."
It's the other knowledge.
Absolutely. I think that is the knowledge of poverty that Shams shows to Mawlana, right? Indicating that you're just carrying the books, but you really know what it contains.
Indeed. Yes, but
I find it interesting that Mawlana doesn't rubbish other kinds of learning. It's not like it doesn't say theology is useless, but it has its limitations. It seems to me that's what it's saying. We read theology to learn more about the one we seek to love and to follow. We learn about fiqh so that we can grow in wisdom to follow the one that we, and all of those kinds of things. And I feel it in myself in all sorts of ways, but we get lost in the details and forget the big picture. I'm learning about all this really interesting stuff. And I just really like all of these details and collecting them. And, rather than what you're collecting them for, we're collectors by nature, I guess. But
indeed. Okay, so the next tale, it's actually all about this knowledge of poverty. Your brother Abraham, so if you don't mind, can you continue?
Bismillah. The story of what passed between the grammarian and the boatman. A certain grammarian embarked in a boat. That self-conceited person turned to the boatman and said, "Have you ever studied grammar?" "No," he replied. The other said, "Half your life has gone to naught." The boatman became heartbroken with grief, but at the time he refrained from answering. The wind cast the boat into a whirlpool. The boatman spoke loud to the grammarian. "Tell me, do you know how to swim?" "No," said he. "O fair-spoken, good-looking man." "O grammarian," said he, "your whole life is nothing, because the boat is sinking in these whirlpools. Know here that self-effacement is needed, not grammar. If you are dead to self, plunge into the sea without peril. The water of the sea places the dead one on its head, but if he is living, how shall he escape from the sea? Inasmuch as you have died to the attributes of the flesh, the sea of consciousness will place you on the crown of its head. O you called the people asses, at this time you are left like an ass upon this ice. If in the world you are the most learned scholar of the time, behold the passing away of this world and this time. We have stitched in the Grammarian that we might teach you the grammar of self-effacement. In self-loss, O venerated friend, you will find the jurisprudence of jurisprudence, the grammar of grammar, the accidents of accidents. That jug of water is our different sorts of knowledge, and the Caliph is the Tigris of God's knowledge. We are carrying jugs full to the Tigris. If we do not know ourselves to be asses, asses we are. After all, the Bedouin was excusable, for he was ignorant of the Tigris and of the river. If he had been acquainted with the Tigris as we are, he would not have carried that jug from place to place. No, had he been aware of that Tigris, he would have dashed that jug against a stone.
So yeah, the story of the Nahwi and the Boatman, it's a beautiful story and also a bit humorous. So yeah, grammarians were actually quite hated during this period. There's so many stories about grammarians. Mawlana himself tells interesting stories about grammarians. There's one is here. There's another one in Fihi, I think, that this grammarian was walking and he falls into a well. And it's a dark well. There's no one there to help him. He's he's just waiting in anguish for someone to come and help him, come and save his life. And then there's a Bedouin and his son who are passing by. They hear the cries of this grammarian. So the Bedouin comes and looks into the well and sees this grammarian and says, don't worry, I will save you. I will save your life. And then he says to his son, go and bring that rimsan. Rimsan, instead of risman, which is rope, he says rimsan, pronounces it incorrectly. Go and bring that rimsan so we can save this fellow. And then the grammarian is enraged. He says, no, the correct pronunciation is risman, not rimsan. And then the Bedouin says, look, I only have rimsan. If you want rimsan, I can save you. Otherwise, you can stay there. So that's like one story about grammarians. And then there's another story, again, Mawlana tells about grammarians is there was a faqih and a grammarian, and they come to a well. And the faqih says this in Arabic, هذه بير. And then the grammarian is enraged and says, no, the correct pronunciation is bir with hamza, not with bir. And then the faqih says, no, it's bir actually, according to some traditions and so on. And they both bring books and they argue for hours and hours whether it should be pronounced bir or ber. And then one of the books of the grammarian is about to fall into the well, and he wants to catch the book. He himself falls into the well, the grammarian. And then he says, from the bottom of the well, he says to the faqih, he says to the jurist, can you help me? Can you please? I've been your friend for so long. And then the faqih says, I can help, I can save you, but there's one condition, that for the rest of your life, anytime you see a well, you should pronounce it as bir, not as ber. So yeah, there's so many stories about how arrogant and weird grammarians were. Yes, Badabra.
The line, in self-loss, a venerated friend, you will find the jurisprudence of jurisprudence, the grammar of grammar, and the accidents of accidents.
Mm-hmm.
That's essentially what the last section was saying. That this is the root of the root.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Take care of the root first, and then all the branches will fall into place.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And we do it all the time. We do it every day. We're taking jugs of water to the Tigris, like the fools that we are. But that's what we do.
Yeah, indeed. And he's saying you're proud of your knowledge. Where you take this to? You're taking it to the source of all knowledge. You're taking a jug of water to the Tigris, right? And you think you're knowledgeable. You think if you don't think you're an ass, you're an ass, right? If you don't realize your own ignorance, if you don't realize your own foolishness, then you're foolish indeed. And then he says that Bedouin was excusable. He didn't know about the Tigris, but if you know and you still take that drug, then you're indeed foolish. Yes, but that.
I was just going to say, so then if you know that you're an ass, does that mean you are an ass?
So yeah, there are people who know and know that they're no. There are people who don't know and know that they don't know. Well, at least they can learn. They have that humility. But the worst people are those who don't know and think that they know. They're the asses who don't know they're asses, and they're the real asses. In this case, the grammarian. He thinks that knowledge of grammar he learned, that's going to save him. He thinks he knows everything. And that's why he's so arrogant. Have you studied grammar? If not, then I'm not going to talk to you. You've wasted your life. If you don't know any grammar, what sort of person are you? But he doesn't know how to swim. And when the ship is wrecked, when the ship is sinking, the only knowledge that will help you, nothing else will help you, is knowing how to swim. And then Mawlana says, to swim is know how to die before death. Because the water of the sea places the dead on its head. To swim is learn how to let go. If you're living, then you can't escape. You will be drowned. So the solution is dying to the creaturely attributes, to the awsaf al-bashar. Once you die, then you will float. Otherwise, you will be drowned. And then Mawlana calls this nahv mahv, right? The grammar of self-effacement. That's I told you this story about the grammarian to teach you another grammar, and that's the grammar of effacing yourself, the grammar of mahv, self-effacement. That's another grammar. Yes, but
learning is good, learning is great, but ultimately, if what you're learning from your learning is to be proud and arrogant, you're not really learning very much. That's quite a corrective to our own arrogance. It's
yes, Al.
Yeah, I think there's also a story about Imam Fakhr-i-Razi that he's a great scholar and a man of a learned scholar and so on, and he gains a very high position in society, and he's very well respected, and a lot of people visit him, even the noblemen of society and the royalty, and he has gained a lot of fame and attention. But eventually he gets very frustrated by this fame and attention, and comes to the conclusion that all of the work that he is doing is just to maintain his position in society. So then I think he spends like 10 or more years in seclusion and isolation completely, besides just some close friends and family members. And he just works on writing books, and he receives a lot of gifts and presents. But most of the time, he just rejects it. And the funny part is that some of the greatest works that he produced was actually from this time of self-isolation and seclusion. So that shows the value of that. Even if you are a man in really high status and position in society, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a pious man, even though you're perceived to be one in some cases.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, but
I wonder if that's essentially what happened to Imam Ghazzali. He's a very learned man, a teacher at the college, and had essentially what seems to be a crisis of faith. I wonder if that wasn't prompted by something, some reflecting on, I've learned all of this, but what for? What for? And when we have those moments, sometimes a tendency can be to throw ourselves into our learning. Well, it takes a rare soul to realize a mistake and correct it.
Indeed. And yeah, that's exactly what happened to him. He realized, I'm learning all of this, but who am I learning it for? Is the sincerity there? Is the fakhr there? And that's why he left his position, he left his family, he set out on a journey, because he realized if there's no sincerity, this is all worthless. We need to have that sincerity and that humility. Yes, Ali?
If I may add something to what Brother Abdurrahman said in the story about Imam al-Ghazzali. I think it was also very similar to Imam Fakhr-i-Razi, that he wrote his magnum opus, the revival of religious sciences, and also the inconsistency of philosophers, also in seclusion and isolation. I think his brother was also really into agnosticism, right, and mysticism as well.
Yep. Yeah, indeed. Ahmad Ghazzali. Yes, Kanza.
I'm just wanting to say I'm having a hard time really analyzing this, because I've read Rumi and I know that the king, like God, is merciful and very generous. So I know that all of these people are gonna get so much from God, even if they make a mistake with the bringing a jar to the Tigris. They're still gonna get all these unbelievable gifts that are totally out of proportion with just a jar of water, sorry. So or jug, I should say. So it's nice to be reading it with all of you and going slowly, but my mind is like I'm interpreting it differently, no? But so I just want to say thank you.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. And yeah, that's what happens in the next section. And the next section is actually quite long, because it's also includes Mawlana's own commentary on the whole story. What was this story of the Bedouin and the Caliph about? So yeah, the next section is how the Caliph accepted the gift. Despite it was, this man was taking a jar to the Khalifa who lived next to the Dijla, to the Tigris. But out of his bounty, out of his generosity, he accepted the Bedouin's gift, even though he had no need. Allahu Ghani, Allah has no need, but Allah accepts what you offer. All your prayers, all your supplications, all your actions, Allah has no need for any of these. But out of his bounty, out of his generosity, he accepts. And that's what happens in the story. The Khalifa accepts the man's gift, and then he says, on the way back, take him show him the Dijla. It's closer, so he gets to see the Dijla. And when he returns, take him to the Tigris. The man sits in the boat and sees the Dijla, and then he falls prostrate, right? He falls in sajda and says, as haya, in shame. Okay, ajab lutfan shahid wa khabra. How wonderful is the kindness of the king, of this bounteous king. And how wonderful it is that he accepted that water from me. Why did he accept? Chun paziroft az man an daryay jud, that sea, that ocean of bounty. How did he accept that jar from me? And yeah, that's how Mawlana starts his own commentary on the story, and then he says the whole world is a jug when it comes to that ocean. Know that the whole universe is just a jug compared to that ocean of bounty and wisdom and beauty. It's all a drop from his Dijla, from his Tigris of bounty and beauty. So it's Mawlana's commentary, so it's quite long. So inshallah we'll start that next week.